Welcome, everyone. I am Kamalika, your host for today, and I host these LinkedIn Lives every Tuesday and every Friday at the same time that we are having it today. And I generally talk about the latest happening from the fintech space, but today we're doing something super special. We're going to be talking about careers in fintech, and I'm super excited about it because fintech has been like my how do I put it? It's my passion area. It's been like a passion area for a while now. So today, yes, like I was saying, we're going to be talking about careers in fintech. While I do have like some structure in mind as to what all careers I want to touch upon today, but this session is really all about you people. So if you have any questions about, you're just confused about the career trajectory that you want to take in the fintech space, feel free to drop in that question, and I will try as best as I can to answer that. Also, if you want, you could also come up on stage if you're in the audio room. Just raise your hand and I will bring you up, just like how we have with us Mohan on stage already. So thank you so much for joining in, Mohan. And one thing that I would request all of you to do when you do join in on the audio room is to make sure that you have all, like you've enabled your settings to be able to speak on stage, because this kind of happens a lot. So do check if you've given permission to your microphone when you do come up on stage. So Mohan, I would request you to check your mic. Just click on the mute unmute button to see if you're able to, if you're audible, basically. Mohan, are you around? So broadly, when we talk about fintech, there are like a few areas that you can cover. It's very broad to actually classify fintech. So the way that I've done it is I've just broken into TradFi and DeFi. TradFi stands for traditional finance, and DeFi stands for decentralized finance. So that's like the broad structure that I will be going in with. Then within each of these also, we will look at the tech and the non-tech jobs that are available in the market and what kind of skills are they looking at for these kind of jobs. By the way, for this session, I've exhausted my LinkedIn search limits already for the week. It's thankfully it's a Friday, so I it will refresh for me at the end of this Sunday. But yes, I've gone through like a bunch of job descriptions from LinkedIn itself to figure out what are like the skills that some of these firms, some of these job descriptions are looking at. So I would be more than happy to share those job descriptions with the job links, sorry, with you people as well. Do drop in a comment, and I'm more than happy to share those job links for whichever ones that you find interesting, whichever categories that you find interesting. All right, now that we've discussed that, the TradFi versus DeFi, I thought we'll start off with TradFi because, well, that's where most of my experience has been in. So yes, slightly partial on that front, even though I do kind of envy the people in DeFi because, gosh, the salaries that they're getting for these DeFi jobs, it's crazy. But anyways, let's not get sidetracked on that. All right, so when we talk about TradFi, which is traditional finance, the broad umbrella of services that are there are from the banking and financial services and the fintechs that are disrupting the banking and financial services. So they're like, think of banking products that you have, right? For a classic example of a disruptor for a bank is a neobank like Revolut, where they have the entire Antide, they have like the entire plethora of products that you would need, right? From your current account, your savings account, to making those investments into fixed deposits or recurring deposits, payment product suites, credit lines, and all of that you can think of when you're doing your banking services. That said, banks too are paying a lot of attention to these fintech disruptions. So they are aggressively hiring people for their fintech divisions. A lot of banks have their own fintech divisions as well. So, like for example, SBI has Yono, Kotak has 811. Axis, which was one of my older employers, also had like a subdivision within Axis, as well as they acquired Freecharge too. So lots of banks are also heavily investing in the fintech space as well. And hey, I see Vinity in the audio room as well. Vinity, do come up on stage if you have anything to add. Always love hearing from you. I know that you actively follow the NFT space, so maybe you'll be able to share some insights from there as well. By the way, a quick note to everyone who's joined in today, especially in the audio room as well as in the video live as well. If you guys feel that anyone on who comes up on stage is adding a lot of value to you people, then you can just simply click on their photo, and that will take you to either their, like right now I realized I'm not sharing my screen in order for my video audiences to see that out. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just half a second. Let me share the screen so that you people understand what I'm doing. All right. So here, if you guys can see my screen right now, yep, it's visible. So you can see that I have clicked on Viniti's face over here, and then it tells me that I can go view her profile or message her directly. Now, these messages are not going to cost you any email. So if you feel anyone who comes up on stage or anyone's profile that you view in the room is like appealing and you want to network with that person, then this is like a great way to go about doing that. You can tell them that, you know what, we attended the same audio room and I think we share the same interests, so why not chat up and, figure out mutual synergies. That's like the best way that you people can network with each other. The same goes for the video event as well, guys. Don't think that this is just for the audio room alone. On the video live as well, if you have RSVP'd for the event, that literally opens up that, the emails for everyone who has signed up for, who has RSVP'd for this event as well. And I see that my good friend Abhishek is also here. Thank you for joining in, Abhishek. And all right, with that, what was I discussing? Yes, we were talking about banks and financial institutions that have their own fintech divisions. Now let's talk about some of the skills that the fintech division within traditional financial services companies look for. The first and foremost, now because it is a tech product and banks and financial services already have like a very good financial talent with them, most of these traditional finances are looking for people with good tech skills. So if you are a coder, or if you are even like an app developer, you can be a full stack developer, an app developer, a UX UI developer, then you have like a bunch of options available to you in these traditional institutions. So you don't need to really have a banking background or a finance background at all for these jobs. You need to be very good at what you do. So your transferable skills here are what matter the most. Are you able to, understand if you get into, say, the app development or the product development side of it? Are you able to understand, the customer's actual use case and develop the UX UI that solves for that particular problem? So that is like some of the talent that is really lacking, and banks, at least in India, are willing to pay quite a lot for such talent. In fact, they're being very competitive nowadays with their pay packages. I know a lot of us have this perception that, oh, it's going to be like a boring sort of a job, but trust me, it's super interesting over there, even in the traditional financial services industry. All right, sorry.
Add one point to what you said, because I suddenly remembered something which happened during the GameStop thing.
Yeah.
So I work as a translator on the down low because I'm working to improve my professional Japanese. And on one night, the night when that GameStop thing happened on via Reddit, because Japan doesn't really hang out a lot in the English side of things, just within 1 hour, I made 90,000 Indian rupees because I was translating subreddit texts for people.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think what you said, if we know what we do really well, it doesn't matter whether we know about the financial industry or not. It's just it's just knowing things just enough. So when the time comes, you can be like, yep, I'm grabbing the opportunity.
Exactly. This is what I wanted to touch upon, right? Because we have a lot of transferable skills that may not be very industry specific. Like in your case, Vinati, that it was the fact that you could translate across different languages, right? And that's something that a lot of people are looking forward to. Just giving you a very basic example, a lot of previously, not right now, but like a lot of miners were based out of Ukraine and Russia before the war started. And so if you needed to, actually do business with any of these crypto exchanges or any of these nodes that actually mine for you, then you would need to understand their language, understand the legal jargons that are there over there. So that I think is one very great example that you have highlighted over there. There are lots of transferable skills, and that also reminds me that on the non-tech side, especially within banks and traditional financial institutions that are looking to ramp up their, their fintech divisions, they do have a lot of PR related stuff that are going on. The entire media management side of things, content development side of it, because banks are boring. Let's face it. So if they want to become relevant and fight with these fintech neck to neck, then they need to be able to pick up those talent as well. And a lot of them are like they were previously. Banks have been, built it internal sort of a mentality, but they are also open to letting freelancers come and work for them on a retainer basis. So if you are a freelancer, again, this may be something that could possibly excite you over there as well. You do need to have a good grasp of at least the regulatory landscape, especially if you're in India, because our Indian regulators are doing quite a lot on the innovation side, especially when it comes to TradFi. So you will need to stay abreast of that. It is okay if you aren't financially that savvy also. Basics of finance is always a little good to know in these cases. But that's okay. You need to be able to read, the latest notices that are coming up from RBI. What does that mean? How does that translate? Like it can occasionally be a little, like, for example, rewinding back to a few years, when NPCI had said that we can have standing instructions in UPI now. What the hell does standing instructions even mean? You need to be able to tell your customers or people or your potential target group that, you know what, now you can use your UPI to make all your recurring payments that are there, be it your utility payments on a recurring basis, your Netflix bills, all of that can just be automated via UPI. You don't need a card anymore. So that's, I think, one other very interesting side of things that's there over there. You just need to be able to translate it. Copywriter's job, basically, you take the copy and make it a lot more accessible to normal people like Vinati and me. So that's again another great non-tech job. Now coming to tech jobs, because my good friend Sachit has mentioned this very, very valuable point over here. Banks have a great set of data to build upon innovative products and solutions and opportunities to create great value propositions for their customers. Absolutely, absolutely true. And if you see a lot of the analytics that's come in today's the jargon that we use today comes from, believe it or not, the insurance domain. And that is actually getting, it's percolating down to other areas as well. So that is definitely data and analytics is something that banks have been hiring for like donkey's years now, and they're going to continue to do that as they start scaling up on their products like, say, UPI, the likes of UPI, and start partnering with a lot more fintech to generate alternative sources of data as well. Just to give you an example, the other day I was talking to a friend of mine about this latest acquisition that Apple has done. And I also wrote a newsletter on that as well called Credit Kudos, where they're literally, Apple is building like an alternative to credit bureaus over there. So, and lots of banks are also partnering with similar companies as well to make use of alternative data sources. Now, here, of course, you need to be very good with data. So you need to have very good SQL skills. Like a querying language is a must. You also need to know at least one scripting language, one statistical tool. It can either be R, SPSS, SAS, Python, whichever one you're comfortable in. It does not, it's not, don't feel beholden by a language, is what I'm trying to say, basically. Because it's once you understand the basics in one language, it's always easy for you to translate that into another language. But that said, I have with me Ayub Khan on stage. Hello, Ayub. Would you like to introduce yourself? Ayub? There is a little mic icon right at the bottom. You can try clicking on that. You may, depending on your mobile, have to give permission to the app to use your microphone. So whenever you are able to, use the mic, do let me know if you have a question, if you have a value add. Always great to hear from you. All right. So we've covered the. Okay, no, we haven't covered the data side. Sorry. So we mentioned SQL. We mentioned one statistical package that you need to know, be it either R, Python, SAS, SPSS, any of it. It's still very relevant to the industry. You also need to be good with visualizing data as well. Now, I'm going to say Excel because that is still a very, very powerful tool to visualize stuff. At least on the descriptive side of things, you can use Excel to literally describe and interpret data, like any sort of data over there. So that is definitely another skill that you need to have. Of course, as the data sets get a lot more larger, you may need to pick up a few other visualization skills as well. But then the most important skill, the fourth one, which is what I've reserved for the last, the most important skill is the ability to interpret data. So you need to be able to talk to data and figure out what is it that you're saying. It's not just about describing the data, right? Okay, fine, your sales have been going down in this XYZ pocket, but why is that going down? Like, you need to have that curiosity in the first place for you to be able to dig deeper and figure out what is the data really telling you. Is it like a seasonal or a cyclical thing, or is it just a transient thing that's going to wash over, say, maybe when COVID cases stop, when the count of COVID cases stop going out, or something like that. So that is again another very important thing. That's a very important skill, which honestly there isn't any course that you can do to pick up on these skills. But that said, you can practice. This is an acquired skill, so you can practice, and there are so many data sets available. If you are in the financial if you want to get into the fintech space, and you are based out of India, then RBI's resources is like the best place for you to go and kind of figure out what sort of data sets are there. How do I download all the excels that are there and then figure out, okay, what is the trend that's coming out of that. There are a lot of other open source networks also on the DeFi side, because so many of their protocols are kind of open source. You can have APIs plugged in that sends you those anonymized data for you to play around with as well. So there's no dearth of data for you to acquire those skills, and that's definitely something that you can do. Okay, we have another question that's coming from my good friend Dadich, whose name I realized was Vivek. So long I've been calling him by his family name, so sorry for that, Vivek. But yes, okay. So the question is, non-tech folks using Python R in their daily tasks. What do they use it for? And is it absolutely essential? Can't seem to grasp the tools. So again, if yes, we do. Okay, I'm in the business analytics space, which is like a mix of business and tech. It's not really non-tech, pure non-tech per se, but you do need it. Like the sales guys who do not have any access to R and Python keep coming back to us, and we have to continuously interpret and kind of project the data for them, which I'm sure if they knew it, they wouldn't be coming to me. So I'm glad they don't in my organization. I have my job because of that. But yes, it makes your projections. So the biggest advantage rather that R and Python have over Excel is you can do the same regression that you can do on Excel on R and Python. It's just that it's much faster. The one problem that I'm sure all of us Excel users have faced is whenever you run any complex formula on a large data set, no matter how powerful your processor, it is going to hang. It is going. You're going to be able to make your key. You're going to be able to go make coffee, come back, sit, finish having 2 cups, and it's still going to be processing. So that's like one advantage that Python and R have. The statistical packages that are there in this are meant to do this, so they're optimized for this, and that's why it becomes a lot more faster when you are doing it. But that is really if you do know Excel quite well. And I know we are connecting over the weekend, so I probably quiz you on your Excel skills. But if you do know Excel quite well, it becomes very easy for you to interpret the data over there. It just makes life faster if you do happen to know R and Python as well, because then you can just directly, you don't need to depend on someone else, right? Or you don't need to create a query or anything. And it's quite simple. I'll probably share a few YouTube tutorials that I used when I started out using Python, and I find it pretty simple to use. So I'll share those with you as well. But great question there. Just circling back to see if Ayub had another question. All right, we have Narsingha sir with us. Hello, Narsingha sir. How are you doing? It's been a while since we connected. Sir, you'll need to click on the unmic option. And once you do that, you will be able to speak on stage. All right. We shall come back to Narsingha sir in a bit now. We have another interesting question that was there. No, I lost it. But okay, Kunal had a very important point to mention, which is the turnaround time or the gestation period for any new launch or an innovative feature. On the other hand, fintechs conceive, develop, deliver in a very short time as compared to banks. Yes and no, I would say. When you think of the app updates that come, yes, I would say that fintechs are much faster than banks in responding to customer queries or identifying the bugs and then kind of going and fixing those. But banks are nowadays realizing that they can no longer afford to be as lethargic as they were. I'm sorry, I'm using the term lethargic, but banks have realized that they can no longer afford to be as lethargic as they were previously. They have to be on their feet, take preemptive action. If not, if they're not able to do that, then yes, they have to be super prompt in rolling out these patches to their consumers. When it comes to innovative features, I can actually think of a bunch of innovative banking apps also. If you just take Kotak 811, for example, they're also like their interface is pretty neat. And that's coming from like one of the big four private banks in India. And honestly, I like their interface over most other fintech payment apps that are there at least. So I wouldn't say that they are slow to innovate on features. They are definitely taking in good feedback over there and they are working on it. The biggest reason why there is a lag in a lot of banks is because of the lack of tech talents. Tech talents in banks turns out pretty fast. If you're good and in a bank, the chances are that you will be snatched up pretty soon by some competitor or a fintech company. So that could be one reason why we feel that there is churn over there. But like I said in the beginning of the session, banks are trying to ramp up on their tech talent as well. And they are getting super competitive. So you may want to shrug out that opinion that you had in the past that banks are not that technically savvy and stuff. Traditional bankers, yes, we still aren't technically savvy. Like they'd probably come and tell you, oh, it's a robotic process automation. Is there someone that needs to switch on the robot for it to do the task? So there will still be people who ask such questions to you. But no, a lot of people are upskilling themselves. In fact, I still remember one of my bosses, Arvind Arya sir. He was at Axis Bank and a phenomenal person to work for. He was very close to his retirement date from Axis. Yet I would see him actually getting interested and excited about what's happening in the blockchain space and reading up about it and coming and talking to us about it. So there are people who, and I think a lot of people are like Arya sir. Arya sir was not an exception for us. So there are like a lot of people who do that. They are upskilling themselves. They are, the thing with banks and tech is that they need to tread that line very very carefully because they're so heavily regulated. They cannot do something like, for example, set up a entire private crypto network and start minting stable coins. They cannot do that because then the RBI is going to drill down on them and be like, we've not sanctioned this, we've not allowed you to do this, how dare you do it? So they need to tread that line very, very carefully. But so glad you brought that point up, Kunal. Abhishek had a very good response that was there to Dadit's question, which was yes, it is generally to automate different kinds of reports. But nowadays, I would say that there are a lot of these automated, like at least where I work, we've automated, we've given the sales team access to to a lot of these extraction bots, wherein they just need, it's like a build a query yourself kind of a platform that we've developed. So engineers in within fintech companies are developing such things. It's basically a lot similar to just plugging and playing. You need, okay, you need this filter, we give you that. You need a location filter, we're going to give you that. You need a date filter, you have that. You want a category filter, all of those filters are there, and then at the back end we just figure out, okay, these are the filters you need to do it, and so here's the query that's going to execute. So I think nowadays that need is also going away for people to learn a language, but it always helps to learn a scripting language and a querying language, even if you aren't getting into the tech side of it, just for the basic reason that you don't have to be dependent on someone else for the data. That's like the only reason I can think of. Yes, this is a very interesting point that Kunal has made again. Kunal, I'm really thankful for the great contribution that you're making to today's session. So Kunal mentions that the key differentiator in attracting and retaining, the key differentiator for fintechs and banks is attracting and retaining talent. Now, if you see, a lot of fintechs offer very lucrative ESOPs, super lucrative ESOPs. Like, you cannot say no to those kind of things over there. Some people have even made like twice their salary just through the ESOPs. And the advantage of ESOPs of fintech is that fintechs are still in the earlier stage of funding. Of course, we do have a few like Paytm and Policy Bazaar, which have IPO'd and no longer hence in that cycle. But most other fintechs are still aggressively raising funding, and as long as they are in that funding stage, it's going to be bonanza for the people that they hire, and that is something that banks cannot compete with at all. Because say if you were supposed to get as a part of your the salary structure that you had negotiated when you joined, say at the end of the year you were supposed to get for example, supposed to get like say 50 or 100 shares of the company. Now by the time you become eligible for it, the company has already gotten like, two rounds of funding, and the value has become almost four times of what when you joined in. So you're already sitting at 4x what you would have gotten before. So that's something, that potential upside is like super great for fintech, and that is one reason why. And they keep adding these ESOPs every year, and a lot of fintechs have also done away with the normal curve distribution, the year end salary appraisal. So that's again, the potential that you never know when the next big paycheck for you will come through your ESOPs. Of course, the thing is with the vesting period, that I think a lot of people, and I'm not really an HR, Kunal, so I'm not going to be able to comment on that. But it is going to depend. The actual cash that you get in hand is going to depend a lot on the vesting period that's there for these ESOPs. But that is a very good point that you have mentioned, and yes, that is one very big reason why banks are finding it so hard to retain talent. Imagine you're a tech guy, you join a bank at the same salary that your friend has joined in a fintech company, but a year later he's kind of doubled his salary just through ESOPs. You're going to feel bad about it, right? You'd also want to join his fintech at the end of the day. So that is thanks for bringing that point up. Sachit had another question, very interesting question. How can you start learning a scripting language for beginners? If you are a total beginner, Sachit, instead of a scripting language, I would first urge you to learn SQL. Because scripting languages, of course, you do have a few changes here and there. You can do a lot. It's a lot more flexible. But the base is still, you still need to be able to do ETL, which is extract, transform, and load the data, for which you need a querying language. So I would suggest, and because SQL is like the most popular querying language that's used across most industries, I would suggest you start with SQL. No, Seb, do not. It's not that I'm saying don't join a bank. Okay, so Seb has brought up a very interesting, quirky sort of a point, which is after what everything that I mentioned, should people not join a bank and just join a fintech? Like I mentioned, right? It depends on your vesting period. Now, if your vesting period, the reason why it's very important is because the stock options that you get from fintechs, because they are private entities, they're not listed on the market, you cannot encash them on will. There will be a period where the company either so as per the agreement, the company may either agree to buy back the shares when they raise subsequent rounds of funding, or you'll have to wait like a particular period of time where there'll be like a private market of angel investors or existing investors who may want to increase their shareholding in the company. So you could at that point in time sell back those shares to those people. So that is, and a lot can happen within the period. We've seen this in the case of Paytm. So people who had gotten their ESOP say a few months prior to Paytm's IPO, they were expecting, and they had like a holding period of about a year. 6 months to a year. I'm not very sure of that. Like I said, I'm not an HR. I've not been keeping track of that. But yes, after that period, a lot can happen in the market. Essentially, the valuation of the company could have gone down, and you may not be getting as much as what you expected to be getting at the end of the day. So there is a huge risk over there. but because it's a higher risk, of course the payoffs are also higher over there. So that SEB is but on the other hand, when it comes to banks, the variable pay that they mention, it is a performance based pay. But if you are, like, say you are one of that top rated performer who's eligible for 100%, you will get that 100% amount. It's not like, it's going to be dependent on the market conditions and stuff like that. So that is, of course, it depends on your risk appetite. Are you someone who's willing to take that risk, and you're very much convinced that the fintech you are joining can do exponentially better. It's going to be able to raise a lot more funding in the coming months, and so I can take that gamble over there. But like I said, it is very important that you go back and check that vesting period, Seb, before you do join that. All right, I had a lot more I wanted to cover. Like, I had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more topics I wanted to cover. So I'm definitely going to be scheduling this a subsequent follow on to this room sometime in the coming weeks. But in the possible, because I promised that I'm going to just keep it to half an hour. Do not want to overshoot that. Do not want to keep you fellow Indians from your dinner either. I will be ending the room. And yes, Seb, I prefer the job stability too. And I think we're the same age. So, yeah, definitely. Okay, Hemant has a very interesting question. What specific skills are required in fintech sector for sales professional from BFSI or outside of it? Hemant, because you went to BFSI, you already understand how financial products work. So that is already a very good thing for you. Now, when you talk about sales, the skills are going to be slightly different for a B2B versus a B2C company. For B2B companies, it's very, very important that you understand the technical side of things. When I say technical, it has to be, you have to understand the tech stack also, and you have to understand how the financial product serves or services a particular customer's pain point. What are the regulatory aspects involved with it, and stuff like that. Just for example, RBI had recently come up with the card on file rule. Okay, I keep calling it card on file. But yes, you have to basically, if you want to store your customers' data, you have to build in that encryption system, because you cannot otherwise store customers' data. It's a privacy issue. That's what RBI had come up with. Now, you need to be able to, if you are trying to sell this service to, say, an e-commerce company that wants to store their customers' detail to enable that one-click payment sort of a flow, you need to be able to understand how it ties in with their existing payment stack if they have one already. B, you also need to understand what is that one-click flow and how will it change? How will the use case, how will the user journey change now if they implement this? So you need to know that, okay, for first-time customers, the journey is going to be slightly different, but after they've done their two-factor authentication and encrypted it and stored it in your site, it's going to be the same. So those are some of the things. So here you'll need to have that technical expertise as well as understand what the financial impact and the user's impact is going to be. But this is a great question. I think what I'm going to do, I realized that, I kind of did not plan this session out properly. So in the coming sessions, what I will do is we'll just pick up one particular niche. If we are talking about, say, B2B fintech, we will pick up that and then bifurcate it into tech and non-tech roles and drill down into some of these questions. But I will be rounding up the room. So if there are no further questions from anyone, then I think we are good to wish each other good night. But if there are any other questions, then don't hesitate to either put it up in the comment section or drop me a message offline as well. I will love to collate all the thoughts and queries that you have on this and come back next time with a much more detailed sort of in one particular sector. We'll just take up those sort of job descriptions and go through those roles and figure out what are the tech and non-tech skills that are needed. But till then, have a great weekend to everyone. And I do hope that all of you are able to find the perfect job for you in the fintech space. Oh. Before we leave, I would love to say that if you people are interested in the fintech space and feel that I can make some introductions for you in a particular company in the fintech space, then do drop me an email. Do let me know, what is the kind of role that you are looking for, what are your target companies, and what your qualifications are, so that helps me kind of figure out, okay, this can be like a good direction for you people to go in. But with that said, I have had a great time talking to all of you. Have a great evening, everyone, and so until next time, then, see you.